I'm in this till the convention and beyond, to the White House, and we see a huge response and momentum behind the campaign.
Welcome back to Hardball. Let's bring in the NBC News political director, Chuck Todd. He's up in New Hampshire. MSNBC political analyst Mike Barnicle. He's with him. And Newsweek's Howard Fineman, who's sitting to my left right here. Starting with Howard, the Clintons, how afraid are they?
Oh, I think there's something bordering on panic inside the Clinton operation right now. They're not sure precisely what to do. Do they bring in new people? There are a lot of factions inside that want to do that. But it's not just the new people. It's what else Hillary's going to say. It's how she's going to regroup. It's whether she has time. This thing is speeding up so quickly. Can she build a firewall far away on February 5th in the big states? There may not be enough time for that.
Well, Mike Barnicle, they can't blame this one on Bob Shrum, at least.
No, and they can't blame it on a left-wing conspiracy either, a vast left-wing conspiracy. Howard nailed it. The acceleration of this thing, the pace of it, the wave of it, the building, the cresting of the wave is enormous. This is an enormous story, Chris, as you know. It's basically, potentially, the end of two dynasties in this country, the Bush dynasty and the Clinton dynasty, and it's all happening right here this evening in New Hampshire.
Let me go to Chuck on that before we show if Hillary shows some tape of the Clintons going to war with Barack. What do you make of their final game here, their end game? Do they have one tonight?
Well, you know, in talking with a lot of people that are involved with the Clinton campaign but don't get to help make the decisions, the fear is they don't have a plan B. The fear is that they had just one plan, inevitability, and the hope that being the first woman president would be the change, that they could be the movement candidate. And, you know, the hard part of this is I think at the very beginning they thought they had sort of two angles at this. They had the woman thing and they had the experience inevitability factor.
Right.
And somehow they lost both of them. And that's what's hard here is that, you know, if one was plan 1A and plan 1B, there's no plan 1C right now. I mean, I'm hearing all sorts of things. Some folks that could get drawn into the campaign are telling me that the most likely scenario is that they'll skip the next two states and basically say, okay, let's make this a referendum on Obama as the nominee on February 5th. I'll drop out after February 5th if I don't get this nomination. But you got to know, those February 5th states, that's what you're voting for. You're voting to end it. You're voting for Obama as the nominee, and maybe that'll sort of jumpstart things. We'll see.
It reminds me of what the Egyptian soldiers said after losing the Six-Day War to Israel. Our strategy was to rape all the women and kill all the men. That's not very good strategy when you're in retreat. Here's what Bill Clinton said about Obama last night in New Hampshire. Let's take a look.
It is wrong that Senator Obama got to go through 15 debates trumpeting his superior judgment and how he had been against the war in every year, enumerating the years, and never got asked one time, not once. Well, how could you say that when you said in 2004 you didn't know how you would have voted on the resolution? You said in 2004 there was no difference between you and George Bush on the war, and you took that speech you're now running on off your website in 2004, and there's no difference in your voting record and Hillary's ever since. Give me a break. This whole thing is the biggest fairy tale I've ever seen.
Well, that's the longest argument I've ever heard. What is the point?
Well, the point is that if they were going to seriously critique Barack Obama's record or lack thereof, they needed to do it months ago. They couldn't depend on the debate moderators to do it. If they were going to make a sort of negative argument, meaning
right,
you can't take him, you got to take us, they needed to do it. But as Chuck said, they went on inevitability. They went on sort of the I am the state case, and they totally forgot to take Barack Obama seriously. And also the idea that the President of the United States, on the eve of the former president, on the eve of the New Hampshire primary, is running around calling the other guy a fairy tale. I mean, that just shows you what desperation the Clinton campaign is in right now.
Well, let me go to Chuck on that. It seems to me if you call the guy a fairy tale, you're saying all the voters who are voting for this guy are saying they like him now, and the national polls are deluded.
Right. Well, guess what? After tonight, all of those national polls are going to flip. You know, after tonight, Barack Obama's going to be the front runner, and he's going to be the one up 10 points. You know, what's interesting here, Chris, is that we're actually going to see a shift tonight in that it is going to be Barack Obama trying to become the inevitable nominee. You know, he is going to try to take tonight's results and not say this is a step toward winning South Carolina or Nevada. He's going to try to use this vacuum that it appears that he thinks is going to be there because of the state of flux that the Clinton campaign's in. And he's going to use this to try to create his own sense of inevitability. They're basically saying, are you really going to be against me? Are you going to stop? Are you going to stop this movement? Are you going to be against all these young people? Are you going to disappoint this crowd? Are you going to disappoint? And that's how he's going to try to woo donors. And that's how he's going to try to woo establishment types. I mean, it is sort of ironic that after tonight, Obama's going to try to become the establishment candidate, and frankly, he'll look that way in a week.
Well, Mike, can he throw Mama from the train?
Well, you know, the former president.
You're laughing, but can he do it? Can he throw Mama from the train tonight?
No, he can't. No, he can't. He cannot do it, and they cannot do it together. And whatever reincarnation of their campaign apparatus they come up with, they can't do it either. There was something sort of sad about seeing the former president in that clip, because he was one of the greatest retail politicians we'll ever see in our lifetime. New Hampshire and Iowa get knocked a lot. People in the media, cynical types like myself, say it's like campaigning basically in front of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, a group of all white people. All right, New Hampshire and Iowa are small states, largely white states, but they are the only two states in the process where people are forced, candidates are forced to come onto this small stage and expose their candidacies, their strengths and their weaknesses in front of ordinary human beings before they disappear into this big media blitz we call the national campaign. Hillary Clinton's campaign was tremendously flawed from the outset because of her inability to connect in a retail way with ordinary people, something her former husband, boy, there's a slip. Right. Something her husband, the former president, was very good at it, and she's just not very good at it.
Let's take a look at Barack Obama pounding back at Bill Clinton. This is getting very quick back and forth here.
I was always against the war. The quote he keeps on feeding back was an interview on Meet the Press at the National Convention when Tim was asking, given your firm opposition to the war, what do you make of the fact that your nominee for president and vice president didn't have that same foresight? And obviously I didn't want to criticize them on the eve of their nomination. So I said, well, I don't know what, I wasn't in the Senate. I can't say for certain what I would have done if I was there. I know that from where I stood, the case was not made. He always leaves that out. And I understand why he's frustrated, but at some point, since we've corrected him repeatedly on this, and he keeps on repeating it, it tells me that he's just more interested in trying to muddy the waters than actually talk fairly about my record.
This is kind of Alice in Wonderland. I mean, first of all, about a week or two ago, we were all stunned to hear Bill Clinton say that he was against the Iraq War from the beginning. Now he's telling us that Barack was for it from the beginning. This is strange.
Well, Barack was against it at the beginning, but he did make a political move at the convention.
To underscore the other guy, right.
So, Barack Obama is going to be under the microscope now.
Right.
There are legitimate questions to ask. The issue here is whether Hillary Clinton waited too long to ask them. That's the key. Somebody's going to ask them, and if, as Chuck says, Barack's going to be the front runner now, and he's going to have a lot of the questions asked about him that the inquisitors at the debates didn't ask and that the Clinton campaign didn't ask. The question now is, will the Clinton campaign do it, or who will do it? Because somebody's going to do it. The Republicans, if nobody else.
Well, we have a lot to talk about tonight as we get the results later on. Thank you, Howard Fineman, Chuck Todd, and Mike Barnicle.